Now, the United States Africa Command is responsible for U.S. military operations in and relations with the African continent. Through multinational exercises and military-to-military engagements, AFRICOM is intended to strengthen relationships with its African partner nations to build the defense capabilities of their security forces. VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb spoke with Chief Master Sergeant Ramon Colon-Lopez, the command senior enlisted leader for headquarters of AFRICOM, about its mission in Africa.
We train a lot of Africans, both in the maritime and land realm. We're helping them build their air forces to be able to transport and ensure proper logistics systems to be able to be synchronized from country to country. And we also help from the state side, the Department of State side, to improve governance in a lot of these regions.
I want to also ask you about the other things that U.S. troops are doing in the Lake Chad region. What can you tell us about what we're doing there and about the threat in that area?
So that is clearly an area where Boko Haram operates. And if you look at the AFRICOM'S lines of effort, that is line of effort number 3, to go ahead and contain Boko Haram. Clearly, Boko Haram has been causing a lot of trouble for the local governments. And as partners working with those governments, we are training, advising, and assisting their forces to be able to get after African solutions to African problems.
The youth bulge, the number of unemployed men that are going to be around in the coming years and expanding in the coming years in Africa, that's a ripe pool for a group like Islamic State. Are you concerned that a place in Africa could be the next place where Islamic State tries to make their so-called caliphate?
So I equated it in a conversation to having a puddle of water and dropping a cinder block in the middle of it. That's what we ended up doing in the Middle East when we got after ISIS. We ended up dropping a great instrument of military power, and we're crushing them. Now, that water that got dispersed has to go somewhere. Maybe going to the Pacific, maybe going into the Africa and Europe areas of responsibilities. While we could not pinpoint any specific location where the heartland is going to be or their so-called caliphate, I will tell you that any country that has got a youth bulge at this time has got to be a concern to us, because there are few opportunities, there's even fewer hope, and you can see by the migration numbers and the instability in some of those countries that when you have no options, and here comes an extremist that is offering you a motorbike and a bride, what do you think you're going to do? Your family's starving, you can't provide for them, and somebody's giving you an option. And you don't have the means to migrate, because migration costs money. Migration is leading into slavery up in Libya. We're seeing that right now in open source. So the poor African people are having very little options to go ahead and progress in life. So of course we're concerned about those numbers, and we're concerned about that youth bulge.
I just want to wrap up, and I know you don't want to rank the threats, but it would be important to our audience to know where you personally are most worried about in Africa.
I worry about the outposts that have U.S. military members that are getting after this threat. And it can be 5 different countries. You know, I worry about them because we can see what happened out there when the enemy decides to overpower the United States of America. And everybody's looking for an advantage in combat. And one side is going to win, and one side is going to come out basically figuring out what they need to do next to go ahead and be better than who they were that day. So if you ask me about things that I worry about the safety of our men and women and making sure that we're providing them with every single asset so that they have a fighting chance when that time comes. Because that's who we are. We're a Department of War, and we get after those things. It's not easy, and it's extremely dangerous. So my charge, if I need to worry about something, I need to make sure that they got everything they need. And if they don't have it, to come here and advocate for it. But what I will say is that if you're one of those enemies, Al-Shabaab, AQIM, the Islamic State, Boko Haram, we will come after you, and we will get you. And we will make sure that the Africans get after you, and they will get you. That is our charter in Africa, and that is what we'll do.
VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb speaking with Chief Master Sergeant Ramon Colon-Lopez.